guys, it's K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having an awesome day today. Bitcoin finally had its move. We've been waiting for this. We knew we could only hit the resistance so many times. After 5 times of trying to break back up to $10,000, Bitcoin finally just gave up. We had a pullback down to about $9,300. We have had a slight bounce back, but the big question is, what is going on? Was that it for the dump? Well, I do want to point out the fact that despite the recent price action, we have a bunch of Bitcoin whales actually pulling their money off of the exchanges, which is very interesting. You would think that if the whales were going to sell, they'd be sending their Bitcoin to the exchanges, not taking it off, and yet we have all of these massive whale transfers. Also, we know today we did finally have confirmation of the Golden Cross, and I told you guys a lot of times these Golden Crosses short term, well, they do end up being fake outs. However, I do want to point out one hidden Golden Cross setup that has happened before, and currently it's happening again, and the last time it happened, Bitcoin had a 6,400% move, and guys, what is going on? 40 Bitcoin transferred from a possible Satoshi-owned wallet that's been dormant since 2009 to an unknown wallet. Why is this money moving? And most of all, guys, I don't know if you've played the new Paperboy 3. It is nothing like the first 2 Paperboys. I'm not sure I like the direction that they're taking this game. Just kidding, guys. But that all aside, we do also need to talk about the fact that we have seen a bunch of millionaires, billionaires allocating some of their capital into Bitcoin. And in today's episode, I want to show you why they're doing this and what they see as far as the value of buying some Bitcoin. I think you're going to want to stick around for that. If that sounds good to you, lots to get into today. That's basically the gist of what we're talking about. If you're not subscribed, definitely consider it. And without further ado, we need to dive directly into the chart. So having a look right here, you can see, yes, we finally had that 5th touch on the CME futures. We have pulled back. Currently, CME futures sitting around the $9,550 level. Yes, we had our Golden Cross. We did have the dump fake out. In fact, if we actually look at where we started the day, we were actually down over 7% at one point, down to $9,000 on Bitstamp. Not too sure what happened over there, but nevertheless, you can see we have put in the Golden Cross. However, we are sitting still at the bottom of this ascending trend. So the question is, was that it for the fake out? Well, we need to talk about something, okay? So this is actually from Nunya Business over on Twitter, and he points out this crazy similarity between Bitcoin Golden Crosses going into Death Crosses and switching back to Golden Crosses. So basically, the first time we had this in 2015, there was a Golden Cross followed by a Death Cross followed by a Golden Cross, and this all happened in a sequence of about 100 days. Price rallied 6,400%. Well, he points out, once again, for the second time, we have the exact same pattern playing out, which occurred in, you guessed it, about 100 days. So are we looking for a crazy setup? Guys, things could get crazy short term. We could see the whales fake out, try to dump it all the way down. But it may actually be ultimately setting up for a massive blast-off move. In fact, you can see right here, we have 2 major levels to keep your eyes on within the next, 24 to 48 hours. Keep your eyes on basically the $10,000 level to break through, okay, on the highs. And for the lows, we kind of want to see Bitcoin stay above 9,300. If you see Bitcoin sort of touching on that $9,300 level, then that is when we could risk falling lower back into the 8,000s, okay? So do keep your eyes on that. But I do want to point out on the positive side that Bitcoin has been trending in this blue channel, which we have actually not seen Bitcoin really ever stay in before. We've only ever wicked into it and instantly pulled back. Whereas right now, if I actually zoom in, we could see that Bitcoin has been hanging around in this channel for 2 days right here. So like I said, if we do have this breakout right here, and that breakout of the channel is actually around the $10,300 level, then we could potentially see Bitcoin have a massive move. And we already talked about the descending broadening wedge target of 15,500. But let me just simplify this, okay? This is a super, ultimately simple chart for Bitcoin. Basically, ever since Bitcoin sort of had this low down here back in July 16th of 2017, we have been trending basically between this high and this low, and it's been getting tighter and tighter and tighter. Now, technically, we could go, a little bit more to the end. We could fall, and Bitcoin could go to the end right here, but you can see that we have tested the top of this channel 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is our 5th time right now. Now, I just want to point out what had happened last time that Bitcoin got below a major moving downtrend. Check this out, okay? So right here, we basically have this, it was support that actually held for Bitcoin for quite some time right here. So basically you could see, Bitcoin came down, we had 1 touch, 2, 3. Then we went sideways. We finally fell through it, but look at what happened the last time we got to that level. Right here, as soon as we crossed back up it, Bitcoin literally skyrocketed back to all-time highs, okay? Well, check this out. We've had something very, very similar right here. So basically, we've also had some major support for Bitcoin as well, coming down to these levels. And look, Bitcoin, when we skyrocketed up to the 14K top last year, look, 1 test, 2 test, 3, whatever. There was actually multiple tests there. Then we finally fell below it, and look at this. Once we got back above it again, we retested once, and we literally got all the way back to the top of the channel. So this is showing a lot of strength for the bulls. Yes, there is, of course, that potential of us coming back down to the bottom of this channel, maybe retesting some of these crazy lows, but ultimately, still, this is looking bullish for Bitcoin because on the macro scale, we are still putting in a higher low, right? We had this low here, we had a higher low, and we had a higher low. So ultimately on the macro, this is looking good for Bitcoin. And like my buddy over here, Dan Norris said, he basically said, I found the pattern and it is to the moon. It's clearly a rocket ship, guys. You can see that this is just a rocket ship getting ready to take off, right? But let's talk about traditional investors. Let's talk about what is so appealing about Bitcoin and why we've seen so many of them actually getting involved in Bitcoin recently. If you haven't seen this chart, lots of people on the channel, if you've been a follower, this is from Money in Markets, and essentially this shows you all of the money in the world. So this right here represents cryptocurrency with this gold representing Bitcoin, right? Now, look, scrolling down here, we have some of the biggest companies in the world, the 50 richest people, Fed's balance sheet, currency, gold, stock markets, gold plus global money supply, global debt. Then we have real estate. We go down into derivatives. Forget about that, guys. This is just absolutely crazy. And once again, yep, that's it, guys. That's Bitcoin. Right there. So how can you see that Bitcoin doesn't have such an amazing ability to grow so large? We do know that the halving is built in. This is something that inevitably cuts the supply down, right? And I want to point out the fact that, yes, there is a demand, guys. You can see Grayscale, in fact, has actually had the highest amount of assets under management it has ever had. This report just came out yesterday. And just to break that down for you, like Mark Vanderchrist says, Grayscale bought 1/3 of all new minted Bitcoins over the last 3 months. So after the halving, that would be an equivalent of 2/3 of all of the new coins coming out. He says these coins are mainly bought by retail investors who want an easy way to buy and hold Bitcoin. So if Grayscale is buying up to 2/3 of all the coins, only 1/3 is left for other investors. It's simple supply and demand. Less supply and more demand leads to exploding prices. This will have a huge effect on Bitcoin price once more institutional investors come in later this year. That in turn will lead to another round of FOMO with retail coming in. And don't forget, we have all of these investors on Square Cash App, as well as yesterday I pointed out that there's over 30 million users on Coinbase alone, 21 million Bitcoin, 30 million users. There's not even enough Bitcoin to go around for each person who has a Coinbase account to have a Bitcoin. Think about that. That's absolutely crazy. But I gotta turn it over to my buddy, Mark Moss. His channel's been doing very well. I love this guy's videos. We've actually had him on the channel before. If you haven't checked out this little live stream that we did, this was actually from a year ago. Definitely check it out. I'll drop it below. But he basically talks about Well, actually, he starts the video talking a little bit about the stock to flow. He talks about the halving, but then he goes into why smart investors are allocating percentages of their portfolios into Bitcoin and why he is betting on Bitcoin. And he does think that there is that possibility to see these crazy gains for Bitcoin, $100,000, $300,000 Bitcoin, and why, in his opinion, that taking that risk on a small level might actually be a great idea. So shout out to Mark. Check him out if you haven't. I'm going to play a clip from this, and then we're going to talk about it.
Bitcoin could easily get to $100,000. I know people think that's crazy talk. I've also referenced models by Plan B. He's done amazing work on what's called the stock to flow model. Now, stock to flow is the stock, the amount of existing supply, the amount of stock that we have available versus the flow, the new incoming flow. It's inflation. Stock to flow, that's our inflation schedule. He's done amazing work on this, and he's basically compared the stock to flow of Bitcoin to other hard assets. Hard assets meaning assets that can't be manipulated, can't be created like fiat currency. So we're talking about mainly gold and silver. He's looked at it to other metals. He's looked at it to jewels and things like that. But really it works with gold and silver. And basically, as the flow decreases, the inflation, the stock becomes more valuable. And he's shown it over and over and over again. Now, based off of this research, it shows the price of Bitcoin kind of moving up and down. No markets go up in a straight line. No markets go down in a straight line. They're always going to stair step both ways. But based off of this research, he shows that new all-time high happens about 1.5 years after the halving event. And again, the halving event is happening right now. So based off of his research, which has held true for over a decade now, doesn't mean it will in the future, but based off of that research, we should expect to see a new all-time high within the next year, year and a half after this halving event, which means that by next year in 2021, he expects the price of Bitcoin to be over $288,000 per Bitcoin, almost $300,000 per Bitcoin. Now, will this happen? No one knows. We don't have a crystal ball. If we did, it would make things so much easier, but we don't. So instead, we have to look at data. We have to look at models and things like that. Now, everybody has an opinion as of this, and I'm sure I'm going to get a ton of your opinions down in the comments below. I'm looking forward to it. But I like to think of things as probabilities, all right? So I'm not trying to predict the future. I'm not trying to guess the future. I think about probabilities. Is it probable? Could it happen? If so, what are the chances of that? How probable is it, right? So that's how we have to think about things as investors. So I think it's possible. I think it's probable that that could happen. That's why I think Bitcoin is the best risk-adjusted bet that we have today. If it can go from 10,000 to 300,000, that's a massive return. So we have a 10x, 20x, 100x on the upside. We have a 1x on the downside, right? That's the type of risk to reward that we like. The real investors, the professional investors, look for something called asymmetric returns. Returns that have way more upside with limited downside. What investors that aren't so smart do is they do the opposite. So I'm betting 100% to make 5%, to make 10%. What real investors, what professional investors do is they invest 5%, they risk 5% to make 100%. It's way better that way. And that's what Bitcoin gives us today. Now, is it guaranteed? Of course not. Nothing in life is guaranteed. Could it go to zero? It could. There's things that could cause it to go to zero. But could it go to 100,000? It definitely could. And so there's a probability of that happening. You have to decide what the probability percentage is, and then you can decide how much you want to allocate to it. But does it make sense to have at least a little bit of exposure to it? I would say definitely. I think we're already seeing like the Paul Tudor Jones, one of the biggest hedge fund managers out there. He said he's allocated 2% of his portfolio to Bitcoin, to the exposure of Bitcoin's price. And so maybe you take 1% exposure. Maybe you take 2% exposure like him. I know people have 50% exposure, and maybe that's too crazy. Definitely, I wouldn't say go all in at all because it's not guaranteed. Could it go to zero? Yes, you could lose 100% of your money, but you could make 1,000%. And those are the types of risk rewards that we're looking at. And like the Bitcoin creator Satoshi Nakamoto said when he first released it, quote, "It might make sense just to get some in case it catches on."
So if that doesn't really break down the scarcity plus the attractiveness that Bitcoin has to all of these crazy millionaire, billionaire investors recently, check out this interesting statistic by Matthew Kane. He's the managing partner at hedge fund Blockhead Capital. So basically this year, miners will unlock 328,500 Bitcoin, right? Which, if we just take a $10,000 Bitcoin price, that's about 3.285 billion. So the total value of the 2 rounds of the US stimulus checks, and this is according to handouts by Steven Mnuchin himself, is around $478 billion. So to keep the Bitcoin price just simply where it is right now, or like around that $10,000 level, you would only need 0.68% of all of that stimulus money to go into the supply of Bitcoin. So if less than 1%, in fact, almost half, okay, 0.6%, 0.7% of people put their money from their stimulus checks into Bitcoin, that would actually keep the Bitcoin price at $10,000. Now, if there's more demand, well, then the price would go even higher than that moving forward. And like I said, guys, look at all of these whales moving their money off of the exchanges into cold storage, or at least to unknown wallets. We have 3,164 Bitcoin moved from OKX. Let me do it in dollar value so it's a lot easier. So we have almost 31 million moved out of OKX, 14.5 million moved out of Zapo. Bitfinex, we had 20 million. We had 15.5 from Coinbase to an unknown wallet, and a whopping 48 from Bitfinex to an unknown wallet. So if they were looking to sell, don't you think they would move them into the exchanges, not off of the exchanges? Just kind of, wanted to point that out. We also have data from Skew showing that options on Deribit alone have reached over 100,000 in open interest. So if this doesn't show you that people are literally interested in Bitcoin right now, well, I don't know what does. And before we move on, we do have a friendly message from Bitcoiner Dorian Esperanto.
We're living in unprecedented times. At a time of a pandemic like this, it's way too easy to get confused and be fearful about what you should be doing with your money in your accounts, especially as you look at the volatility in the stock market and the financial sector. This is what I want you to take away from this. Withdraw your Bitcoin from custodial exchanges. Bitcoin was created so that you could be your own bank. The last thing you should be doing is trusting someone else to hold it for you. I'll tell you this, over $850 million worth of Bitcoin were stolen from Mt. Gox in 2014. The same thing could happen to an exchange that you're using. So, if you want to keep your Bitcoin somewhere safe, withdraw it and be your own bank.
Also, we need to talk about the fact that 50 Bitcoin literally just moved from a wallet that has been untouched since 2009. Now, they're saying this is one of the first mined Bitcoin wallets out there. Well, you could see Nick Carter. He says, I don't think this is the case. Early non-Satoshi mined coins are periodically awakened, just not frequently. In fact, he does say, here's a visualization of the Potoshi pattern with the block that was just spent. The blocks believed to be Satoshi have a specific pattern in the nonce, which this block does not. So no, we do not believe that this is Satoshi's wallet. However, like Tyler S. said, everybody's saying, well, it's only 40 Bitcoin that was moved from this 11-year-old wallet, has completely missed the point. Nobody thinks 40 Bitcoin is insane, but what are the chances that somebody that has access to an 11-year-old wallet may have a lot more Bitcoin and may be looking for another potential sell-off? So let me know what you guys think about that. A little bit of conspiracy. No, it's not Satoshi's wallet, but very interesting and definitely crazy to think about that. Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, says New York City going broke. All cities count on income tax, sales tax, and real estate taxes, especially commercial real estate. Add pension contributions for teachers, firefighters, and police. USA going broke. Fed printing fake money cannot save you. Get gold, silver, Bitcoin, and save yourself. Also, speaking of just like this retail interest, you have major Swiss cryptocurrency broker Bitcoin Suisse added a high security custodial support and staking service for Tezos. Now, this isn't Bitcoin news, but the fact that they're also offering services on staking for altcoins, that also shows you adoption as well. They basically announced on May 19th that, now keep in mind, these guys have custodies of over $1 billion in assets, that they are going live with Tezos staking delegation, custody support, etc. And kind of hate ending on bad news, but there is an upcoming Steam hard fork that is looking to seize accounts and funds of former Steemit witnesses and stakeholders. They're saying that this is due to the fact that the accounts in question are troublemakers, or essentially they've been going against the acquisition of Steam by Justin Sun. But those involved say that this is merely just another power play by Justin Sun, and I've actually seen some people outright just basically saying this is robbery. This is basically just stealing funds. Let me know what you guys think about that. That is not a good look, but for everyone out there freaking out about the Bitcoin miner capitulation, well, you can see just right here at block 631008, we did have a Bitcoin difficulty adjustment of 6%. So the difficulty is adjusting. This is built into the Bitcoin protocol. And this is why I never worry when I hear about miner capitulation, because it is just a beautiful, harmonious ecosystem that is the Bitcoin protocol. That's it for me today, guys. Hope you enjoy your day. Hope the Bitcoin price isn't freaking you out right now. Things could get a little bit crazy in the next 24 to 48 hours, but that's just another day in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency land. Thank you for stopping by. Do consider getting subscribed if you haven't. If you want to join the free Telegram group, you can click the link above. It is below in the description. We just hang out, talk cryptocurrency, Bitcoin price charts, stuff all day. That's it for me today, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. My name is K-Dub. This is Crypto Zombie. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.